Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some other stuff they're sharing around the world on Newsfeed today. India cuts the internet in parts of the country in an attempt to stop people protesting against a new law described as anti-Muslim. We investigate the landmark court case against big tech on behalf of child minors in the DRC. Kim K causes controversy over her looks once again. And top of our newsfeed, the Citizenship Act in India. It's been described as anti-Muslim as it allows people from neighbouring nations Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh of every faith except Islam to get Indian citizenship. Now, protests have been growing and now the government, in an attempt to quell the unrest, has turned off the internet in some parts of the country. Here's Radhika.
Protests like this one have been taking place across the length and breadth of India since the controversial bill was turned into an act by the Indian Parliament. We've seen students really taking charge when it comes to the protests. Universities and colleges across the country have seen students boiling over with anger. Social media has been a key tool that they've been using. For example, TikTok, which is a huge rage in India, has been used by this student who put up a video from the Jamia University in India. He shows two of his co-students dancing while the song that's been underlaid talks about the rights of Muslims and other minorities in the country. Social media has also been used to tell people, to give them information about where and when protests are taking place. Maps of India have been circulated with the pointers about when and where protests would take place and where people can come and raise their concerns. Of course, many protests have also turned violent in the country. We've seen police detaining students. This particular graphic tells students to not be violent with the police, but ask police for the warrant or ask police for the order that gives them the authority to arrest them. Students have also been very angry about the government shutting down internet services in many parts of the country.
If I don't have internet, I'm going to come out on the streets and protest. But the problem is, if I don't have internet, I can't mobilize my people who also want to stand for the cause or who also want to stand in solidarity with the students of the country.
It's brought all of us together, like whether it's class, caste, society, gender, none of that matters, because at the end of the day, we're all uniting for the same purpose. And social media is that bridging factor, because clearly the government isn't being that right now.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. Now, will the Force be strong with this one? The latest and last Star Wars movie is out, Rise of Skywalker, and for those of us who spent far too much of their lives obsessing over the Republic, the Empire, lightsabers, Star Destroyers, et al., we will be watching hoping this thing is more New Hope than Last Jedi. Couldn't search Google in parts of Turkey, Iran and Eastern Europe yesterday? Well, that's because a fibre optic cable was cut in a number of places between Iran and Bucharest in Romania and Munich in Germany. The service was out for about 2 hours. And a woman called Emily Talermo is internet famous for 5 minutes because she has offered a $7,000 reward to find her dog, Jackson. Now, this thing was apparently snatched from outside a store in San Francisco. Miss Talermo has hired a plane to fly a banner with the web address bringjacksonhome.com. She's also launched a GoFundMe campaign which has raised more than $8,500 so far, more than enough to buy another dog, we think. And next, earlier in the week, we told you about a landmark case around cobalt mining and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, a group called the International Rights Advocates has sued Tesla, Apple, Alphabet, Dell and Microsoft on behalf of 14 families whose children died mining cobalt in the DRC. Now, the companies are accused of being complicit in the deaths as the cobalt the children helped bring out of the ground went into the products they make. Now, I spoke to Michael Nest, a researcher on mining in the DRC. He's written about the minerals cobalt and coltan, which are indispensable in the digital age. I began by asking him if he thought that this case would have an impact on the industry.
Certainly in terms of an action that brings attention to the fact that this mineral is in everything and that the supply chains in some places most likely do, and according to the organization, definitely do, they've documented this, involve child labor. So I don't think that's a bad thing that attention is brought to this. I think that in terms of the future for systemic child labor in Congo, I think the jury is still out on whether this case will actually improve anything around that. So even if they do win the case and the defendants named, the complainants named actually get some kind of compensation and their families, that doesn't mean that there is going to be a systemic change in Congo that means that poor children don't turn to work because they can't actually stay in school.
Well, then asked, because these materials are so vital to us and there's no way to stop the extraction of them, is there a way it can be taken out of the ground more responsibly, ideally, without children having to do the hard work?
In fact, under another mineral called coltan or tantalite, there have been, effectively, they're like these boutique arrangements between an end-use manufacturer of electronic goods and a very highly controlled mine that has, great conditions for labor. There are no armed groups involved. And that relationship has been established to really to see whether it can be replicated on a larger scale. So Motorola in the United States was a forerunner in doing that. And I think that there is an opportunity to experiment with those kind of innovative or boutique relationships. The problem will be whether they can be upscaled to, very large areas of the country. And, the other problem is that the companies that care about doing that kind of arrangement and can afford to do it, they have competitors in other countries like, competing manufacturers in China. So really the question is, if Chinese manufacturers are willing to do the same thing, then there's some kind of level playing field where the costs are roughly the same for both sides. But whoever does not need to or does not care to invest in that way means they can produce their goods more cheaply, and that gives them an advantage in the market.
Well, Kim Kardashian West is being called out on social media for darkening her skin to make it seem like she's black. And the internet was having not one bit of it.
You helped get some black people out of jail and you thought we were going to let this slide? Nah, they want our shade but not our struggle. I'm ready to get the ASAP.
Can we all just leave Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians period, in this decade? They profit and benefit from black women and culture, and they have a weird fetish for black men. You can't tell me this right here isn't blackface.
The thing with Kim Kardashian and her family's tireless history of cultural appropriation and blackfishing is that she knows better. They know better. But they continue to do this because they know outrage sells. They're able to keep their name relevant by doing things like this.
Kim Kardashian appropriating black culture and doing blackface in a classy way, while her and her husband support a president who actively harms minority communities, the ultimate rich white lady move.
Finally, I can share with you guys this project that I've been developing for the last year. I've been passionate about this for 15 years. Kimono is my take on shapewear and solutions for women that actually work. My fans and followers are a huge inspiration to me. I'm always listening to their feedback and opinions, and I'm so grateful they shared their ideas for a brand new name. After much thought and consideration, I'm excited to announce the launch of Skim's solution wear.
So guys, I did bow Derek braids and I'm really into it.
Okay, let's go around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Friday. Well, the High Court in the Netherlands has just handed down a really quite consequential ruling. It has found that the country is responsible for protecting its citizens from the effects of the climate crisis. The court says a person's human rights are under threat if the government doesn't do everything it can to avert the worst effects of extreme weather conditions, global heating, and carbon emissions. Now, this ruling will have far-reaching consequences as it's based on EU law, so can theoretically be applied in all 27 member states and any other state which has signed the European Convention on Human Rights. Oh, sorry, not sorry. The Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, or ScoMo to his mates, has given a non-apology after returning from a holiday in Hawaii. He said he was sorry he caused offence by going on vacay while his country faces its worst bushfires in a generation. Now, sorry you upset, not sorry he did it. That is not an apology, ScoMo. And I should know, I use that technique all the time. A US government study has confirmed what many have been warning for a while. AI facial recognition systems have a racial bias. Black and Asian faces are 100 times more likely to be falsely identified than Caucasian ones. The study was carried out by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and highlights why so many are concerned about law enforcement agencies using this kind of tech. Well, next to Somalia, a country which is rebuilding figuratively and literally after decades of war. We spoke to someone helping in that process, Omar Dangan, an architect who sees something of a renaissance, not just in his hometown, the capital Mogadishu, but also across the entire country.
The most iconic project, because it was a bit like as a sort of social experiment too, was the designing of this new restaurant called Salsabil, and where we tried deeply to put together contemporary design, but at the same time to bring back the cultural identity of Somalia through the use of the local fabrics and local materials. We involve craftsmen. And the experiment was trying to give, like in an area where is still a bit undeveloped, a very high quality interior design and space, and figure it out what it would have happened with this sort of architecture and design. And the result was amazing in a sense that the people felt that that was a very contemporary modern space, but at the same time very Somali. And the response from the people in general was great. It changed completely the dynamics of an area, and I think that was the proof of how much design and architecture can bring back life in certain neighborhood, and at the same time using cultural objects or materials that the people recognize as their own. I think that the challenges that are like in common with all the post-conflict countries in this sense, in a way that obviously like a civil war or a war in general, as a final result, got like the destruction of most of the infrastructures and buildings. So I think that the biggest challenge is to trying to bring back the sense of belonging. So recreate with the buildings, the sort of attachment that the people usually has in the cities, with like public spaces, buildings.
And last up, the story of a stray dog who broke into someone's house and ended up getting itself a new owner. Now, this happened in Philadelphia in America and was played out through Twitter. This video from CCTV shows the stray wanders into the house of a guy called Jack Jokinen. She was injured and malnourished, and they took her to the vet and decided to name her Susie. She now has a new home, and her every move has been shared with the internet through Jack's account at JJ from the Bronx. That will do from the Newsfeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints, and suggestions. You'll find me at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to that channel. Follow me on Twitter. Follow, subscribe, and add to see you again soon.